Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel, and welcome to a new series on the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. Again, it's myself and the excellent, as always, Will Grant back at it again with a bit of a somewhat catch-up roundup, but this is a bit less than that than what we usually do with Norwich Spotlight. Do keep your eyes peeled for tomorrow's episode coming out, previewing the upcoming week for Norwich City, but this one's just a more general discussion on a big topic. Hence, well, you can see from the title and the big thing right above me just there in the graphic we've got. This is called The Big Question. So we're going to try to do every week if availability allows. And we're going to have a look, myself and Will, or maybe Jack or Henry, whoever's around. We're going to we'll poise both of us. We'll poise the big question. Of course, you feel free to get involved in our comments section or on social media. Write an article for the website if you really want. There's always a guest article with your name waiting on it on the actual website. But I'll pass over to Will. I'll let everyone know what the big question actually is for our inaugural episode of the new series. But just before that, Will, of course, I spoke to you when we recorded Norwich Spotlight yesterday, but today being Wednesday now. So in the last 24 hours, really, what's been going on and how have you been in your own life?
Yeah, mate, I've been absolutely brilliant, actually. But there's been some quite big news, hasn't there, really, in the football world, hasn't there? Obviously, Thomas Tuchel has now been announced as a manager. Obviously, just listened to his press conference today, and that sounded all encouraging. Obviously, I don't think we'll get into a debate today about whether it's weird having a non-English manager at the helm or not. But today we're going to be talking about the big question, which is, are Norwich City able to challenge for the top two this season? And for me, I kind of thought about this question, actually, when we went 2-0 up against Hull, and Norwich scored like the most beautiful team goal possible. I was like, wow, how actually, okay. I think we might be on something here. So absolutely superb the way we kind of played against Hull. And I just kept thinking maybe this season could have a bit more than a transitional one for Norwich. And I definitely do. I do see some arguments for it and some arguments against it. I think, obviously, I've prepared an agenda, Freddie, for us to kind of talk about the major talking points across this. But I've just thought of one now. And I just generally think I want you to kind of jump in here, mate. But for you, does this season for you, like, the league just feels so open? Like, I really can't call like a standout team to kind of challenge for top two. Look, I know Sheffield United have started really strongly, Leeds as well, but it still feels like they aren't overly far away from us. Obviously, Norwich are drawn against Leeds and Sheffield United both at home this season as well. So maybe they aren't too far away as what we thought. And maybe in my preseason predictions, my prediction of 12th might be quite negative now. So generally, Freddie, do you think it's quite an open league this season?
It does feel like it. Of course, there are really the runaway teams that you can sort of look at and think, yeah, they're pretty much nailed on. It is Sheffield United at the moment, having just had this amazing start to the season. Of course, West Brom are right up there. They had a fine run of form as of late until eventually did lose very recently. There's Leeds United, of course, who many back to just absolutely romp the league. Of course, gave Norwich a very competitive game and Norwich got a good 1-1 draw against them. But again, they were unfortunate to draw with Sunderland. Even Sunderland right up there, fighting for their life at the top of the table. No one would have thought that come the start of the season under new manager Reggie Labrie. But even everyone who's in the top six, and even from sort of maybe 7th to 12th in the league, it feels like you very much have got so many different contenders. There's maybe 8 or 9, maybe even 10 sides who really look like they're going to crack on and maybe push for a playoff spot. But I do agree with you. It is a very open league. Maybe that could work to Norwich's advantage at the fact of, well, a lot of different games will be big tests depending on where they are in the table. And because it's still early on, if you win a game and a few sides drop a few points, you can just skyrocket up the league. And of course, Norwich have got the quality to do so. Already we've seen Nunez and Sainz, who have they look phenomenal. They're producing goals from out of nowhere, quite literally against Hull. Nunez just decided, well, the pair of them, Nunez and Sainz, didn't fancy scoring a clean through one-on-one. They just decided, well, Nunez decided, let me just spank one in from 20 yards. Sainz just lobbed it over the keeper from outside of the area. They really have been the turning factor for Norwich. They're the big catalysts in this team. But to probably answer your question there, sort of a mini one from the big question of if Norwich will be top 2 contenders come April at the end of the season. I do think that this league is very open, yes. I completely agree with you on that point.
Yeah, and I think one of Norwich's biggest assets to their, well, I don't want to kind of set a parameter here that where I expect Norwich to be in the top 2 this season, because I think that is still quite unrealistic. Look, the team is still so young, etc., etc. But I think if Norwich were to mount a challenge, I think one of their biggest assets, obviously, that we've seen across the season is Johannes Hoff Thorup. I really, really enjoyed his practice substitutions in games. It feels like under our probably maybe even Farker actually. So obviously Smith, Wagner, Smith, Wagner, and Farker. It feels like all 3 of those managers in the past, they were quite cautious with their substitutions. But I think it feels like, especially under JHG's reign so far, I think we saw at Coventry, didn't we? When obviously I think it was Forson and so that was it. It was Forson and Cernach. Both of them were playing below par, but at half-time, he had the guts to immediately pull both of them off the pitch and bring on Oscar Schwartau, and I think it was Anis Ben-Samani as well. So yeah. I think there's definitely much better proaction this season from Norwich, especially from the management bench as well, which I'm very, very encouraged by. But it's even the way he kind of changes his shape, especially in possession for each team. Obviously, we've seen now that JHG has kind of gone, obviously, from the start of the season against Oxford, it was a 3-2-5 shape. But I think he soon realised during that game that it was just too easy for Oxford to kind of restrict our opportunities to kind of to gain control in the middle third of the game. So what he done is he brought an extra body back into the team, and he played more of a 2-3-5 shape, in central possession, and that gave Norwich much better kind of fluency to really try and find a link between defence and attack. And I think that's definitely been a very, very big talk point actually across the season. Even the fullbacks have switched into that role. So we've seen like Nunes playing like more advanced, and we've seen Callum Dult and Kenneth Fisher invert to kind of create that 2-3-5 structure with obviously either Samani or McLean Holding in that shape, with obviously the 2 centre halves obviously occupying the back line as well. So I think there's been greater flexibility and adaptability by JHG, and it feels like especially under Farker and Wagner, both of those managers, they were so rigid in their kind of build-up shapes, and it had to be the kind of same thing every game. And it kind of felt like they used Norwich's strength in this division to try and propel them forwards, instead of, if Norwich are actually in trouble during one of these games, they can actually go off the bench and try and change their kind of structure to kind of get a better result against a team which will cause Norwich problems. So, look, I think I've been very, very impressed with JHG's flexibility so far this season. I think that is definitely, for me, one of the big talking points. But I think although you can have a lot of players playing well together, and obviously that creates a very, very good run of form for your team, obviously, as well. But I still think so you've got to have quality in certain situations as well. And I think Borges signs Freddie and Martin Nunez, as you both touched on, it kind of feels like to me they had the quality to try and score a goal from a moment. And it feels like last season we had Jonathan Rowe and Gabriel Sarra that could do that as well. So it feels like there are correlations between this season and last season. But actually this season we kind of play in more of like an attacking style of play, whilst also kind of showcasing more control if you get countered, for example. I mean, looking at the stats here in terms of quality for Norwich attackingly, we've got the third highest XG in the league and created the most chances on average per game with 1.8 as well. So there's signs there that Norwich are a very, very good cohesive unit in attack. And even looking at another stat as well, I think Norwich have missed 19 big chances this season, and that is the most in the league. I think Sargent's probably been the catalyst for that, bless his heart, missing a few penalties and a few one-on-ones, but I don't think you can criticise Sargent too much this season, because I think he's given you obviously 3 assists as well, 2 goals I think it is as well. So there's still some good numbers there, but in terms of all-round ability to kind of link up this Norwich side, I think he's a perfect forward, and I think that is what's making me so happy about how we kind of play at the moment, because there's players there for me who are who are performing way above what I think we're expected to see in such of the season. Because I think a common analysis point across the season so far, Freddie, feel free to disagree here, but it feels like we are kind of like ahead of schedule at the minute. It feels like after Arsenal 11 is playing well, like way above par, for example. There's so many really good performances. Look, I know obviously if you kind of have like a backbone in the championship, of Sargent, McLean, Nunes, etc., you always are going to be strong because they are quality players at this level. But it still takes some guts for JHT to kind of oversee a massive kind of squad overhaul and adapt his new style, and whilst also for me trying to get the fans on side as well. So overall, I've just been so impressed with how quick it's actually took us to kind of be actually on the front foot. Look, I expect some bumps, which we should actually touch on in a second. But so far for me, in terms of how well we've done so far, I think for me definitely a very, very big step forward, because I've been very excited to watch us play every week. And do you kind of echo those same thoughts, Freddie, or do you think you got more to add?
It's an interesting one. In terms of your point of is the starting 11 playing above par, I wouldn't really say so. I think this starting 11 is one of the strongest in the division. Maybe that's bias, and that's maybe recency bias alongside it. But I do think that this team is very strong. I think we should be where we are currently in the league table and be up there come the end of it. Because in my predictions for the channel we did, I had Norwich in 9th, simply because I saw it as a transition season, but I knew the squad was good enough to still compete, which ultimately is coming into fruition. Of course, it's still a transitional season, but we're seeing the signs just a lot quicker than I think a lot of people expected. But we have to remember, when Norwich started life under Daniel Farke, I think we were 5th in the league in this sort of stage and ended up finishing 14th. We had completely fell off. But it could be the case that maybe this side has hit form, and they may continue to do that over the month of October and November. But it could be a completely different kettle of fish. But I do think this side, I wouldn't say it's performing above par, because it's a good side. I think they're playing how I expected Norwich to do this season. And I think maybe a few other people expected Norwich to be doing this season. But I just think, we've definitely kicked on earlier than what I expected. But really, I shouldn't be raising that as a concern. That should just be a massive praising point for the coaching staff and these players. They have learned what the ideology is. They're cracking on with it. Maybe what is sort of a negative to that, just the only real problem with the squad overall, there isn't much depth there. I think that is to why Emi Marcondes was brought in, for depth, no matter what you make of that, whether you like that signing or you don't. But it was, in my eyes, smart, because depth is needed. At any level of football, you need depth, because if you have 1 or 2 injuries, which Norwich have had as of late, you are in trouble a little bit. And that's maybe another sort of negative as to why maybe Norwich couldn't be a top 2 contender. They get a lot of niggly injuries throughout the season. They seem to get one pretty big one per season, and it always seems to be a big player. We saw it with Sargent last season. He missed, what was it in the end? He missed 4 months of the season, and Norwich, of course, ended up in the playoffs. But if they had him the whole season, could they maybe finished higher up in the playoffs, or in the positions maybe? Who knows? We won't know that. But I just think, in terms of the team, in terms of performance, it's home and away still in performance levels where Norwich are in big trouble. This isn't me trying to go on and be a stereotypically negative Norwich fan, or just, it's about balancing the argument. Of course, that's what we want to do for these questions, and anything related with Norwich, you have to balance it fairly. I think that there's brilliant points of this squad. Is really cracking on. They're winning away from home, which is what they couldn't do last season. They are playing gorgeous football along the way while doing it. But there's the case of Norwich have got their core 11, and if any of them get injured, yes, there is options, but not really the ideal ones you want. Say Callum Doyle gets injured, your only other real option is Grant Hanley, who isn't a ball-playing centre-half. He's not comfortable with the ball at his feet. He's not quick. He's not really a technical player. That's a big concern. And even after Grant Hanley, you then have Brad Hills, who's not played a single championship. He's not made a starting game in the championship, which maybe is unfair based off how he started in pre-season. But after Brad Hills, you haven't got anyone else as a first-team centre-half. So Norwich really have got they've got Cordoba, Doyle, Duffy, Hanley, Hills. There's 5 centre-halves there. Yes, that's okay, but it's 2 of them get injured. You're up a creek without a paddle. You can get in big trouble. And as well as we still may have seen, just going back to the point I made about home and away performances, it seems as if, and you raise this on, well, even the agenda, Will, of course, hence why we're sort of going on about it, but you put it to me as that Norwich, they don't have as much control in games away from home. That's a very fair point, and I think it's spot on, really. I can't disagree with it. Love to hear your sort of further thoughts on it as well, but that is maybe what could limit this team to being a top 2 contender, because, of course, at home, if you are a top 2 contender, you should do what Norwich are doing. You're not losing at home. You are blitzing everyone you play almost at home. And when a big team comes to you, you get a result and you grind it out. But away from home, you've got to beat pretty much any team who's below you or isn't near you in the table away from home. If you want to be a contender, you need to convincingly win no matter who you play or where you go. But that's just, even the win against Derby, 3-2, and it got shaky at times. And if it wasn't for a massive save by Gunn near the end, we could have maybe thrown away a 3-1 lead. At Coventry, that was the outlier. Norwich, despite, yes, they gave away a few chances, but throughout the entire game, it felt as if they were really controlled and that they were going to win it once they took the lead. And then even you look at another away win, trying to think of who the one was after or even before Derby now, it's escaped my mind rather annoyingly. It's because I've piled on for a couple of minutes. Who was it? Sorry, this is very... No, this is...
I think it was, wasn't it Swansea we lost? And then we lost at Swansea, didn't we? Yeah, and then...
Yeah, no, we did, yeah. And then it was beating Derby. And then...
Watford Derby, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, there was Derby. There was back-to-back away wins in there somewhere, but I've completely forgotten who the other side was, which is rather annoying. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll move on anyway. But no, it does seem that away from home, Norwich do struggle controlling games and they find it difficult at an away atmosphere. But do you second that really? Or do you, of course, being the person who sort of raised it, I hope so. But maybe, do you now maybe sort of, having thought about different other elements, do you think Norwich could they maybe start controlling games away from home and maybe they can turn their fortunes around compared to last campaign?
Look, I think there's many good teams in this league. And when I mean about controlling these games in the Championship, if it just felt like against Oxford, I think they were the main people in the game. They were the ones trying to stop Norwich, and they did so effectively. I just think even at Coventry, there was, although Norwich did control the game pretty much, I reckon for about 2/3 of the game, there was still a period actually in the first half where I thought Coventry were actually the better team. So I just think if Norwich are to be a top 2 side, you have to go to these grounds. Obviously, the sample size is still quite small. I'm aware of that, but it just feels like if Norwich do want to be a top 2 side this season and they want to try and get to the upper stages of the table, I think we had to see a bit more control. I feel like, obviously, the game against Derby, for me, it was a very, very strange game, and I never really felt in control of the game. I think Norwich did some very good stuff against Derby, which made them have more control of the game. But you always felt that Derby could kind of go to their last resort and play more direct, and it kind of got them back into the game, really. Obviously, I think Cordoba and I think it was Duffy, I think they both, and probably actually Fisher and Crescenti all as well, with like that whole back 4 line. I think all of them kind of struggled against Derby to try and stop their like free aerial presence getting back some momentum into their side. I mean, I think we know Derby are a very, very direct side, and they're very, very, very good from set pieces, I must add as well. So it just like Norwich should be getting into a situation in that game when Angus Gunn is having to make a ridiculous save to keep us in the 98th minute. Although that game had its controversies with the obviously the ball being out of play and so forth, but it just feels like even against Swansea as well, it was quite an even game. So I just think if Norwich I wanted to get to a top level, they've got to be a bit more ruthless in how they control the game. But they are controlling games in a sense that they're creating really good chances. Absolutely. I mean, the stats back it up brilliantly. So that's all good and fine. It's just, you never really feel like we're not, especially like away from home, but like they are fully in control of the game. And I think there's still quite a big discrepancy, that's the word, between our home performances and our away performances in terms of control. I think at home, obviously, when Norwich went full up against Hull and obviously Watford as well, for one as well. So I think those games we kind of felt comfortable that Norwich would see it out as such. But it just feels like even if Norwich have like a 2-goal like swing away from home, they still have to show a bit more quality to try and get through that. Maybe that's more of a mentality thing, but I still personally think we're doing a good job. I mean, the way I kind of saw us this season is I expected us to kind of be quite a good side at home and maybe not be as good on the road, just due to like quite like a young squad and then being a bit like naive in kind of critical areas of the pitch. But I think also what I will add is, although you can gain really good control of the game, it feels like to me this squad has got probably I'd say about 14 players where I'm very confident that they can deliver to a highest level. But I'm not convinced that is fully submitted across the whole group. I still think we are a bit light in some areas. But I think the way that we're going to have to try and nullify that is just by JHG's really, really good coaching. So I think there's a way around that. And obviously, yes, it's still the first season as well. But I just think actually, if I'm going to go back to how I'm going to finish this big question, if you will. And I think Norwich are a very, very good side, especially at home. And the way they play at home and break through teams is absolutely scintillating to watch at home. And they do play like a top 2 team at home, in my personal opinion. But away from home, it isn't just quite there yet. I mean, for me, that's perfectly fine because we're on a journey. We still need to try and build a better squad if we are to kind of go up and then compete again. But personally, I think what's in these last 8 games is I've kind of raised my bar from like mid-table, I'm not too sure, a bit inconsistent, to maybe Norwich can be a good playoff side because usually in this league, if you win the majority of your home games and you pick up some decent results on the road, that normally leads to a playoff kind of level. And I think that'd be a very, very good bar for JHG. And it's fairly tough to hit this season, personally, in my opinion. I just think if I was to name, like, probably over the year, about 7 players from my starting 11 and they get injured, I think, gosh, that's a huge blow. I mean, for example, Callum Doyle, he'd be a huge blow. Angus Gunn, Sargent, Signs, McLean, Fisher, even right now. There's just so many, I think. If any of those get injured from our starting 11, I think the level kind of then decreases. And I think that is a bit of a shame. But I just think for now, obviously, the expectation isn't as high. So I think JHT's got enough credit in the bank to kind of ride those tough storms. But I just think if one of those big players that I mentioned gets injured, I think Norwich aren't to a good enough standard to be a top 2 side. So I think that is my final conclusion, Freddie. But very, very promising signs. Would you concur with that? Or do you think that, hang on, actually, there could be a chance here?
No, I very much agree with what you've just said. I think Norwich can definitely compete and be up there, maybe amongst the sort of the automatic promotion contenders. But I just think there's a few inconsistencies within the team. Of course, as you've just put it there, they could get, if they get 1 or 2 big injuries to their core of the team and the big names like Sainz or Nunez or Sargent and so forth, there is a massive hole there to be filled. And there isn't that many decent enough players, in my opinion, to sort of fill the role fill their boots. It is difficult because of maybe the lack of depth Norwich have had, as I've already said. And if we do lose a big name, we've proven before that can cost us quite a bit, and we lose a lot of a big element to our game. So, look, Norwich there's no reason why they can't compete with a fully fit squad And the form, if they can keep up form they have done and showcased over the last few weeks, there's no reason why they can't. But I just don't think the squad is strong enough in its depth, unlike the other sides, like Sheffield United, like Leeds, maybe even Burnley, you could argue, albeit they've lost a lot of players. But I just don't think the depth is there for this team to properly be able to rotate and still have a strong 11 and be up there. I think Norwich can definitely be a playoff contender and maybe a playoff guarantor if they can continue what they're doing. But top two, I don't think they can get there. I don't think this team is going to be in there come the end of the season. So to answer the big question, can Norwich make the top two? It's a no from me at the moment. That could well change, but for the moment, I need to see a little bit more from this team, and I need to see depth being added in maybe the January window for that to truly be a conversation to bring up.
So it's 2 no's, and I think it's a marathon, not a sprint as well. So Norwich could have an absolutely sublime 9-game run still like we've seen, but it could all come tumbling down in the next 9 games. Hopefully it doesn't, but that is the absolute choice of the championship for you. But yeah, I think obviously just to kind of add on back to your points, mate, I just think if any of those players are starting 11 gets injured, because I think all 11 of them actually are all playing actually so well right now. And I just worry if, for example, if you see, for example, the likes of if like a Manco Forson can come in and produce what Nunes can, like I'm just not too sure if he could right now. I'm not saying any of them are like bad players as such. It's just that when you've got a player where you think they're just so far above, like Dill, like Nunes, like Sargent, etc., then obviously I think you get a bit more doubt come into you. But hey ho, we'll soon see. JHT, absolutely superb so far, and I've loved watching this team play, Freddie. So 2 no's. Is that? Are we going to end it there?
Yeah, I think we sort of have to, but the discussion doesn't have to end there. That's for certain. Of course, as already said at the start of this very video, let us know your answers and thoughts, maybe your advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons, really, rather, as to if you think Norwich can be a top 2 team. Let us know in our comments section on any of our social media pages, or even if you really fancy it, get in touch on the website with Gary Gowers and maybe even write yourself a little bit of a guest article and as to why you think Norwich could or could not be a top 2 contender. But anyway, we hope you've enjoyed this video and the inaugural episode of The Big Question, and we'll have to get to the drawing board and think about one to bring to you next week. But anyway, that's been your lot for today. I've been Freddie Humphrey Wakefield, and he has been Will Grant. This has been the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. It's goodbye for now, and we'll see you in the next video of ours.